I've always wanted to ask someone in who works in sort of the CG side of movies, like, is it hard to look back at your work because technology advances so
Yeah,
quickly?
yeah. I mean, the stuff that I could look back and be fond of is the stuff I shot in camera and used
Mm,
sort of in camera techniques that were used since the beginning of the filmmaking process. The very early CG stuff, I shied away from for a long time because I didn't understand it. I only knew real things and lights and cameras and physics of cameras and field of view and all the various things that's part and parcel of real photography. So
right.
a lot of the stuff I did had a lot to do with in camera things, and then I got pretty decent at compositing. If I would shoot all the elements correctly and lit them all correctly and stage them all correctly, the assemblage of it would make a seamless comp. And some of them are in the movies I've done early on, from Apollo 13 and various other things. And I also, every time I did any of the movies, I did second unit, and I was the second unit cameraman as well. So part and parcel of my work was I would do some live stuff intermixed with the CG stuff or the visual effecty stuff. The stuff that ages poorly is when you can't get on top of some shots and some things,
Right,
and you
right.
can't make it work, which now is so much easier to do. I mean, the big innovation on Titanic was CG water, which is like you can
Mhm.
now, it's a plug-in for After Effects for
Right.
$100, and looks every bit as good as the millions of dollars we spent trying to perfect it in
Mhm.
that movie. But that was, and some of the stuff in Titanic still holds up, and some of it's embarrassing. Some of it that doesn't
Right.
hold up very well. And to be totally honest, some of the stuff that doesn't hold up, I didn't do either. We had other companies do it that I wasn't happy with the technique of relying on CG of the day when I thought it would be better if we shot things more realistically.
Right.
So there's certain things that I get pegged for. Somebody came up to me and said, "Well, how could you let that shot go?" It's like, well, I didn't do that one.
Right. Well, that is it is
I
an
have a few that
interesting
I did let go that are equally as embarrassing. But
right. It is an interesting thought though, like what you just said, you could tell during that time that it could be better.
yeah, that's why I shied away from it for many years. I never tried
Interesting.
to solve the problem that way. An early story was I did Apollo 13, and Digital Main was set up to be this computer company rivaling ILM, and CG was all the rage, and there was a scene where the capsule floats to the ocean, floats down with the parachutes to the ocean, and I was going to film it in such a way that it felt more like a newsman, a news kind of
Mm,
photographer
right.
photographed it. It had a little bit of a documentary feel, and then I got a tremendous amount of pushback from the company because they wanted it to be a CG shot, and it's like I can't get there from here. I have never seen anything that looks
Hmm.
realistic enough, and I'm trying to make it look ultra realistic, look like it wasn't staged for a movie, but it was
Why did it have to be a CG shot?
because they wanted the company to put forth that sort of image and tackle that problem. So at the end of the day, they can say, "Well, look at our great
Interesting.
CG work." So they
Hmm.
showed me, and then it was like a full court press where I was saying, for me, I want to take the thing, throw it out of a helicopter, put real parachutes on it,
Right.
sit on a cliff in Catalina, and photograph the thing, and I'm done. And it
Right.
looks every bit as good as it can be. And I knew, that I could get away with the miniature because the miniature isn't that small for what the capsule is. Parachutes have to look real. They're basically doing the job that they're intended to do, even if they're
Right.
smaller, and you over crank the camera, and it looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like it's undetectable from the real thing. And I was very much interested in it. So my point of view, my drive was how to make it as realistic as humanly possible. And theirs was how do we do this in CG? And it's like, well, and then they screw themselves by saying, well, we can do that shot for $100,000. It's like I could shoot all day long with two helicopters in Catalina for
Right.
$35,000, and it looks absolutely dead realistic. And the day after I'm done shooting, it's in the movie.
Mm.
Yours is, it could be a 6 month process, and I may not be happy. And then they really screwed the pooch when they showed me something that somebody did in, I think it's called Outbreak. It was a scene that somebody did in CG with CG parachutes and a box that's floating down to like Africa or
Mm.
some place, and it was horrible. I mean,
Right.
it was just horrible. And it's like, well, are you showing this to convince me that it can't be done? Uh, um,
Mm.
and
Wow.
so I knew that one day you could probably get there. but that was not the day,
Right.
and that day wasn't anytime soon that I could see. And because I couldn't get my hands into it and actually render it and know how the lighting worked and all that stuff, it was all a big black box mystery to me. I shied away from it for many years until CG caught up with my ability to alter the parameters and be able to create real life realistically, and mostly because the computer, like right now, it's called ray tracing and other various things and other texturing and all the stuff that we end up doing now. That if you set it up like you would on a stage and you build a 3D set and you put a light where you put a light if it were a real thing, and the light that bounces off the furniture and the walls and the things contribute to the lighting of the scene and all that
Hmm.
stuff, it's
Hmm.
kind of an automatic process, much like it is in real life. You put a lamp up and it does all the work for you. You just have to know where the lamp goes and how to expose for it and how much fill you use. But that's mechanical work that I am fluent in. Um, but in the computer, it's like we have to fake all that. Well, as soon as you don't have to fake all that, you kind of get this real life happy accident that contributes to the believability of the scene because it's, in essence, no different than real life. It's simulating how light hits an object, bounces off of it, reflects off another object, hits this, contributes to the scene, and all of a sudden it looks pretty damn realistic out
Right.
of the box. And so now that you can do that, then I could influence the art portion of it. What my, because part and parcel of shooting is you're setting up a camera to capture the story at its best.
Mm.
How is it composed? How is it lit? Who's in shadow? Who's not in shadow? How does it start? How does it end? How does it unwind? So you tell the story from the beginning of the shot to the end of the shot, and how does it contribute to the next shot, and hence the sequence, and then hence the movie. So all those things are all skills. It's not just recreating a realistic looking environment. That shot has to mean something. That has to tell a
Right.
story. And so once you're able to kind of influence the storytelling part, which I'm most interested in, and then the mechanics of it, where it fits pretty neatly into the magic of movies. If you go on a movie set, it doesn't look like it looks like in the film. There's, all the
Hmm.
lights are
Right.
everywhere, all the cables, all the stuff, and you only could see what the camera
Yeah.
vantage point is. And all of a sudden, you peel out everything else, you add sound effects, music, and dialogue, and all of a sudden you're in a movie again. So that magic is not terribly dissimilar than how it's created in a computer or anything else. Now, if you
Right.
could recreate that moment and you as the audience believe it to be real, it is real. It's as real as any movie ever made. So there's no separation between church and state. There it is exactly movie making at its and now you're just judged by if you're a good movie maker or not. Yes, I can
Right.
make something that looks realistic, but if it looks realistic and it doesn't tell the story and it bores the audience, what good is it? So it's not just the achievement of being able to do it. It's like in the case of Jungle Book, it's not, yes, you could create an animal that looks real. What is it doing? What is it
Hmm.
saying? How is it moving in the scene? How is it lit? Does it advance the story? It's like you could shoot a real person who's not very good actor, and you go, well, yes, they're absolutely realistic, but they're not realistic as the character. They don't. I don't
Right.
believe it. They don't advance the story, and so you're right back at square one again until you get a magic performer that is just like they just melt in front of you, and it completely belies the craft of acting and the craft of movie making in general.
Right.
And the same is true of all the disciplines. If it's costuming or props or sets or whatever, everybody's striving for this verisimilitude that transport is so good that you don't even question it anymore. You don't question what clothes Marlon Brando's wearing in The Godfather or any other character that you like in a film, or what chair he's sitting in, or what places. The more skillful, the less skillful, you kind of feel like it's the set. The door, when it closes, it kind of shakes the rest of the walls, and
Hmm.
you kind of detect the artifice of it all. But if you're great, and the people I work with, very lucky to work with some really incredible, gifted filmmakers in their own right, who apply their craft like a Hugo. We're the best of everybody. Everybody's like a
Right.
three-time Academy Award winner. The cameraman and the production designer and the costume designer and the prop guy it was
Right.
astounding. And of course, there's Martin Scorsese, who's like the kingpin of doing great films, and Thelma Schoonmaker, who won 3 Oscars for her incredible editing. And so you're working at the really top of the craft there with the best of the best, and it's exhilarating.
Right.
It's incredible.